The gunshot echoed through the marble foyer of tech billionaire heiress Thorne's penthouse, a single, violent punctuation mark in a life of quiet luxury. By the time Detective Miles arrived, the scene was sterile and still. Thorne was dead, the security system was wiped, and the only witness was a man curled in a chair, staring at an abstract painting with wide, uncomprehending eyes. His name was Leo. He was Thorne's personal archivist, and he had seen the killer. The problem was, the trauma had shattered his memory like a pane of glass. He couldn't recall his own name, let alone a face. "It's all shapes," Leo whispered, his voice hollow. "And the sound of the ocean." For 3 weeks, the case was ice cold. The press bayed for blood. The commissioner leaned on Miles, and Leo remained a ghost in the system. Then, Miles's last-ditch Hail Mary arrived in the form of Dr. Emily, a neuroscientist so sharp she seemed to cut the air around her. She brought with her the Mnemonic Visualization Interface, or the Memory Palace Project. "The memory isn't gone, Detective," she explained, her fingers flying across a tablet in the sterile observation room. "The memory, it's fractured, but we can step into them and see what he can't consciously recall. Think of it as organized dreaming." Leo, wired with a constellation of sensors, sat in a recliner opposite them, his eyes closed. Miles, wearing a haptic visor, felt a wave of vertigo. "Organized dreaming. Right, and you're sure this is safe?" "For you, mostly. For him, the mind is a fragile ecosystem. We're just tourists." Emily's voice was calm in his ear. "Remember, the rules of reality don't apply. Logic is a suggestion. Ready?" Miles wasn't, but he nodded, and the world dissolved. One moment he was in a white room, the next he was standing on a beach at midnight. The sand was the color of bone, and a black ocean roared under 2 mismatched moons. This was Leo's memory palace. It was breathtaking and utterly terrifying. "The beach is a common entry point," Emily's voice guided him, a tether to the real world. "The ocean is his subconscious, the repository of everything. The memories we need will be landmarks. Look for something that doesn't belong." Miles walked. A grand piano stood half buried in the sand, playing a dissonant chord on a loop. Further down, a childhood treehouse was perched precariously on a cliff edge. It was all feeling, no facts. Then he saw it. A door. A simple, polished oak door standing freely in the middle of the beach. As Miles reached for the handle, the ground trembled, the sand shifted, and the door slid away. "His mind is resisting," Emily noted, her voice tight. "It's protecting itself. You need to be faster." After hours of trial and error, they found a rhythm. Miles learned to chase the ephemeral. A floating frozen tear became the memory of Leo's first day working for Thorne. A bright, sun-drenched office where Thorne spoke of legacy. A shattered mirror reflected a furious argument Thorne had with a blurred, featureless figure. The voice was a distorted growl. The killer? They couldn't tell.
The palace was a non-linear scrapbook. They'd be in a memory of Leo learning to ride a bike, and then, reflected in a puddle, they'd see a fragment of the murder night. The glint of a gun, the smell of cordite, the overwhelming sense of dread. The deeper they went, the more hostile the palace became. Hallways would elongate into infinity. Doors would lead back to the beach. Once, a flock of origami birds swarmed Miles, their paper wings sharp as raisins, forcing him to retreat. "He's hiding something," Miles grunted, batting away a memory of a barking dog that had morphed into a creature of shadow and teeth. "Something he's deeply ashamed of." The mind doesn't distinguish between a secret and the threat. It just hides them both. The breakthrough came when they found a memory of Thorne's last party. The palace rendered it as a lavish, silent ballroom where guests waltzed without faces. But in the corner, reflected in a champagne flute, was a clear image. A man. He had a sharp jawline and a distinctive spiderweb tattoo on his wrist, talking intently with Thorne. It was the first clear face they'd seen that wasn't Thorne or Leo. "Got you," Miles whispered. The palace reacted violently. The ballroom floor cracked. The faceless guests turned to Miles, their blankness suddenly accusing. The walls began to bleed a dark, inky substance. Emily, we're losing it. The memory is tied to a core trauma. He doesn't want you to see this. Follow the reflection. Miles dove through the melting champagne flute and found himself in a new memory. An office. Thorne's office, on the night of the murder. It was the clearest memory yet. He saw Leo hiding behind a floor-length curtain, peeking out. He saw Eris Thorne pleading with the man with the tattoo. "The deal is off, Silas," Thorne said, his voice crystal clear. "I know what you've been doing. The embezzlement, it's over." Silas laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound. "You think you can just fire me? I built this company with you. I know all your secrets, Eris, including the one about your dear little archivist." From his hiding spot, Leo gasped. Silas's head snapped towards the curtain. And then it happened. The gunshot. Not an echo, but a present, visceral blast. Miles watched, helpless, as Thorne fell. Silas stood over him, his face a mask of cold fury. And then he turned, and his eyes looked directly at the curtain, directly at Leo, directly at Miles. He started walking towards them. "Emily, he's coming! We have the face! Pull me out!" The connection is destabilizing. His fear is creating a feedback loop.
The memory palace was collapsing. The office walls pixelated and dissolved into static. Silas kept walking, his form flickering, sometimes a man, sometimes a monstrous shadow, a manifestation of Leo's pure terror. "He saw me," Leo's voice whimpered over the calm, a raw, present-tense panic. "He saw me. He's going to find me." "Miles, grab an anchor, a strong, positive memory. It's the only way to stabilize the signal." Miles fought through the storm of fear, searching. He saw a memory of Leo as a boy, holding a winning science fair project. No, too weak. He saw him receiving his degree. No. Then he saw it, a small, quiet memory glowing faintly amidst the chaos. Leo, just a week ago, carefully restoring an old, faded photograph of his mother, a look of profound peace on his face. Miles focused all his will on that memory, pushing towards it. The world snapped back into focus. He was in the observation room, ripping the visor from his head, his heart hammering against his ribs. Across from him, Leo was sobbing, but his eyes were open and they were clear. "His name is Silas," Leo said, his voice trembling but certain. "Silas Morrow. He was Mr. Thorne's business partner." 2 hours later, Silas Morrow was arrested at a private airfield. The spiderweb tattoo was on his wrist, just as they'd seen. The evidence they gathered from his financials and the memory recording was enough to hold him. Back at the hospital, Miles found Leo sitting up in bed, looking out at the real world. "The ocean. It's quiet now." Miles nodded. The case was closed, the killer caught, but as he left, he couldn't shake the feeling. They had navigated the labyrinth and found the monster at its center, but they had also seen the fragile architect of that labyrinth, a man whose deepest shame wasn't witnessing a murder, but the secret that made him hide, the secret Silas had threatened to expose. That was a mystery for another day, one that belonged to Leo alone. The palace gates were closed, and some doors, Miles decided, were better left locked.